Bill Maher has been left feeling very nervous about Joe Biden's chances. The Real-Time host gave the RNC high marks and expressed he's less confident about a Biden victory. And I would agree with him. The only issue is that Bill Maher doesn't seem to get it. The woke insanity has only gotten worse, and he's called it out over and over again. Now, perhaps Trump isn't the answer to the far left insanity, but I'll tell you what, he's your only real option at this point. And I know it sounds dumb, and I hate saying this, because I've long said I typically don't vote against people, but I gotta say it right now. What's the alternative? Jo Jorgensen, you could vote libertarian, but she's overtly expressed support for Black Lives Matter. That's the racist intersectionality that I oppose. So Donald Trump seems like the only option. I want to start this by making one very important point. There's a man named Ibrahim Kendi who wrote a book. It's #1 in human rights on Amazon. It's number 13 overall. In it, he says the only cure for past discrimination is present discrimination, and the only cure for present discrimination is future discrimination. Martin Luther King Jr. said that he had a dream that his kids would live in a world where they would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. So my question to the left is, if you believe in this ideology, then what are you doing to support Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream? The reality is, it's quite the opposite of it. That's what I'm opposed to. I'm also angry about the ongoing riots. Bill Maher has talked about this, but apparently it's just not enough for him to realize that Trump might have his issues, but he's certainly not as bad as Joe Biden. And I guess Bill Maher's hope is that Biden is a return to the Obama era, but this is where it all started. They blame Trump. They say all this is happening on Trump's watch. I don't care. Trump's the one railing against it. All of this weird intersectionality stuff and the far left racist stuff started under Obama. I mean, you could argue it started earlier than that, but it was under Obama for 2 terms, and he did nothing about it. Fox News says, Real-Time host Bill Maher expressed his concerns about President Trump pulling off a re-election victory following this week's Republican convention. Appearing on MSNBC's The Readout, Maher gave the RNC high marks, calling it unique, and noting the inclusion of people applauding for some of the speakers. I don't know if this stuff works, but it might. I am feeling less confident about this. Maybe it's just their convention bump got to me, but I'm feeling less confident than I was a month ago. MSNBC host Joy Reid agreed that the GOP convention was a smoothly produced thing and suggested that the 4 black guys and the women who were invited to speak were meant to sway voters as a permission slip for those who felt uncomfortable supporting President Trump again in 2020. Wildly offensive, racist, and sexist, I might add, but we'll get to that in a second. Maher, however, called the strategy effective, highlighting Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron's blistering attacks against Joe Biden. He was pushing back on Joe Biden for saying, if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. And I don't think that's a good thing for Joe Biden to have said, Maher told Reid. He, Cameron, said, I have my own mind. People do have their own minds. I've never been a fan of conformity. I've never been a fan of we all wear pink on Wednesdays. We all have to do this. We all have to say this. I don't bend the knee, and I get that people are pushing back at that kind of stuff, he explained. The HBO star then reiterated his growing doubts of a president-elect Biden. I feel very nervous the same way I did 4 years ago at this time. Maher later told Reid the Republicans at the convention looked optimistic despite the pandemic and civil unrest, stressing that optimism very often wins elections. Even President Trump appeared gleeful upon hearing Maher's pessimism. Leading in Michigan, leading in Minnesota, leading all over. Sorry, Trump reacted. There it is. Now, this segment isn't going to be about the secret Trump voters. In fact, I've got a segment on that coming up in just a few minutes. No, this segment is on the personalities and the pundits. See, Bill Maher is expressing his doubt based on the RNC being well done. And what does MSNBC's Joy Reid claim? She says the RNC trotted out black speakers to make whites feel good about white nationalism. The host endorsed an article that blasted black tokens who speak at the GOP convention. Where you at, Bill Maher? You were just on this lady's show. Could you tell her to shut up? That's racist, okay? Donald Trump, the RNC, are bringing up people you are on the side of, supposedly arguing that marginalized voices need to be uplifted. So what did the RNC do? They said, okay, great, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, come on down. Tell people what you think. And now Joy Reid has the nerve to insult them over this. It's funny. They claim to care about diversity. They don't. Anyone who dare oppose them is smeared and insulted as tokens. That is patently absurd. Fox News reports. In a piece published in the liberal outlet The Nation, frequent MSNBC guest Ellie Mistel accused the RNC of using black people to convince white people it's okay to vote for a bigot, saying, quote, "Most white Republican voters don't need permission to vote for white supremacy. They're racist themselves and think being racist is just common sense," Mistel wrote. The message is not subtle, but Donald Trump's willingness to say the quiet part out loud is why so many racists love him. The irreducible core of his base is white people who think being openly racist and violent towards black people is an inalienable right that has been taken from them by cancel culture. Trump gives these people a bullhorn and they love him for it. I care about liberalism. Yeah, straight up. That's why I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, because these people are nuts. I love it. They come to my page and they say, here comes another white man saying, shut up. Because legally, and I guess in their own context, I'm not white. I guess that's how it works in this country. You have any amount of not white in you and you're not white. Fine, whatever. I've never had to think about my identity. And I've actually had white nationalists say this to me. They said that my problem is that I have no racial identity because I'm mixed race. And people wonder why I mention it as often as I do. I don't mention it nearly as often as most people actually say, but I get it. It's a meme. It's kind of funny. The point is, I've never actually experienced any circumstance in which I had to assert identity until these people came along and started crapping all over liberalism. Isn't that crazy? That the liberals, their best option is to vote conservative? Some people have said that liberals are conservatives now, and that's not true. It's not true. Conservatives still have their distinct ideology, and we're talking about the colloquial understanding of the terms based on U.S. politics. I, as a liberal, still have many of the same liberal policy positions, though I think the best bet is to vote conservative because they're closer to where I'm at compared to these overt racists like Joy Reid and this woman, what's her name? Ellie Mistel. Mistel went on to claim the GOP was practicing tokenism by having several black speakers expressing their support for President Trump, including Senator Tim Scott, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, former NFL players Jack Brewer and Herschel Walker, among others. She says, "The black people who were allowed to speak at this convention were there to transmit one message to white listeners. It's okay. Trump's racism is okay because here's one of Trump's black golfing buddies. Cops and vigilantes shooting black people is okay because here's a black ex-con who complied with the police and he's still alive," Mistel explained. The banality of these black validators can be seen most clearly when you compare their roles to what the white speakers were allowed to do at the convention. The black speakers seemingly wanted nothing. There were no additional policies they desired or issues they wanted addressed. They had no goals they wanted the next Trump administration to accomplish, and no legislation they wanted Republicans to pass. Instead of an agenda, the black people were just there to say, "Thank you, white folks," and fade off screen. I'm not black, but I do come from a mixed family, and I will tell you this. When I was having a conversation with a progressive friend of mine, and the reason I bring this up in reference to, Bill Maher is simply because this is what the pundits are bringing up in reference to Trump. And I will tell you why I think Bill Maher is right and Trump is going to win. I was talking to a progressive friend of mine who told me to check my white privilege. And I said, I don't identify as white. And she was shocked. She said, what you don't? But I was like, yeah, I have a mixed family. I didn't grow up I had, bulgogi and my mom would make Korean food. And we weren't overtly any specific culture. My dad would make burgers. We were just regular people. And I never actually had, growing up, this identity based around race or anything like that. So here I am now being confronted by progressives who are white, calling for white collective action and insulting black people because they dare have opinions they don't like. I don't like that either. When I would talk to my progressives about race, they would demand I identify as white. Why? That's insane. They'd be like, well, you're passing, so you have to. I was like, no, that's not true. Many people don't know what I am. Sure, a lot of people said, you just look like a white guy. I get it. But if I go out in the summer, I get a tan, then I get told that I'm Mexican or whatever. And that's my experience. Shouldn't my experience matter to these leftists? Guess what? When I talk to Trump supporters, they never ask me about my identity. They never ask me about race. It's only the left that ever does. And the point is, the left, some of these progressives will assume I'm Hispanic or something else. That's what they say. Oh, I figured you were something else. I don't want to deal with that. I shouldn't have to deal with that. And I especially don't like it when I hear them disparaging minorities for thinking for themselves. I have no problem with progressives who are black, white, Latino. And if they think the opinions they have, I respect that as well. But why is it only going in one direction? Why is it that when I go and stand next to a Trump supporter, my race doesn't matter? But when they have speakers who want to speak up and talk about what they believe in, now all of a sudden it's a race issue. The Democrats are overtly racist, and the white people who support them are pathetic and spineless and not worth talking to for me when it comes to opinions. And I'll tell you why. Because as soon as they find out, like I've been at these Occupy protests, I was at Occupy Wall Street. When I talk to these progressives, they will argue with me until they find out that I'm not from a 100% white family. All of a sudden, then they change their opinions, meaning they never told me anything sincere in the first place. I don't want to live in a country ruled by these lunatics. I'd rather sit down with people of different races, creeds, colors, religions, whatever, national origins, some, asylum seekers, and have a real conversation about our world views and how we experience things. And that means you will have a conservative who is black or Hispanic, and I don't care if they're black or Hispanic. And you will have Nikki Haley who is Indian, and I don't care if she's Indian. I think their ideas are interesting, and I'm curious as to how they got to that position. And I especially don't like my family being attacked. So I think there is some truth to the idea of intersectionality. My experience is dramatically different to that of a white family and to that of a black family. So where does that put me when the far left wants a racialized world based on finite and easily quantifiable races that I don't fit into? No, that's nightmarish. I will take Donald Trump, American nationalism, over any of these lunatics who want leftist identitarianism or white nationalism. No. You know what I like? When I see black conservatives, it says to me that there is a space where there are people who aren't racist, who are willing to say, I don't care what your skin color is, come and talk about whatever your idea is. The left, on the other hand, will insult all of them on racial grounds. That's messed up. So Bill Maher, I tell you this, and you absolutely could have called out Joy Reid for these things. You didn't do it. But now I want to move on to the more numerical aspect of this. The next segment coming up, let's get into the numbers. Trump's secret vote, it's real. Many people don't want to say they're going to vote for him. Well, let's talk about it. The next segment will be coming up in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.